Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been our sponsor since the very beginning. For over 30 years, Maxwell has delivered the highest quality projects by holding to their core values of customer satisfaction, positive attitude, respect, and excellence. So if you have any kind of commercial construction need, give Maxwell Construction a call today at 812-537-2200.
Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. This is Merle Hutchinson, being joined by my amazing, overly committed wife.
What?
Overly committed. You're so committed to me.
Oh, okay. Committed to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about being overcommitted.
Overcommitted.
Tonight. Oh, you are like, you were
it.
on it.
You just
Nothing
pressed
like
that gap there, didn't you?
Segue, yeah. Just figuring out.
I'd like to say you're overly committed to me, but you are committed to me. But
I am
more
committed to
than that, man, hon, how many times do we have a counseling session, a coaching session where we have families come in that are the first thing you say or they say is, we are so busy.
Oh my gosh.
We are so busy. They're so overly committed. And so you and I, because we are very guilty of this sin in our life.
Which is why I'm going to say this right off the bat. There's a disclaimer. We've been having this discussion for a really long time about the need for this show. But
we were too busy.
No, it was because we knew we were going to step on our own toes.
Yeah.
And we also know we're going to step on a lot of people's toes today, including yours.
Yeah.
So sometimes we dance around those hard topics, but then sometimes we're like, no.
Today we're going after it.
We're going after it. And honestly, we know we're going to step on toes. We step on a lot of toes of our own, but then those that walk in our doors and those that listen. And so we'll probably get some pushback. It's okay. But we know it's an important topic that we've got to deal with.
Here's the key takeaway, really, before we even get started. Hey, maybe it'll get some conversation going. Maybe it'll get some discussion going, because as we were actually writing this, Lynn and I were having some discussion about just our own home and how we're doing things with activities and kids and all these commitments that we have. And so that's really what we're ultimately going to try to get through here.
Yes.
But so anyway, this is going to be hopefully a thought-provoking show.
Yeah.
And you should still be amazingly committed to me.
I am.
There you go.
Till death do us part.
All right, let's thank our sponsors, and let's get into the meat and potatoes of this one.
We want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction for their support of Rock Solid Radio, but also Rock Solid Families and what we do every day working in our office in St. Leon, Indiana. We just thank them for just really their support and their encouragement and just walking alongside us in these really important discussions about our families, about our marriages, about our community.
Yeah. Let's also just remind you guys out there that first off, we need you. Okay. We need you. We thank you very much for making the referrals. We do very little in the way of advertising, and most of the people who come to see us are through word of mouth or maybe through one of our shows that people are prompted. And so we want to thank all of you. Please help us out. Get the 5-star ratings out there, as it is part of the process of getting search engines to find us and for other people. But we also, part of our day work is actually being in the trenches with you. And so our day-to-day coaching, whether it be individuals, marriage, family, parenting, anything along those lines. And so please reach out to us. There's help out there, and if it's out of our scope, then our job is to help you even getting referred to somebody that can help you. So sitting around and just being stuck is not a good place to be. So reach out to us. You can check out our stuff over at our website at rocksolidfamilies.org, or call the office at 812-576-7625.
Yeah. So as we talk about unpacking our schedule, the cost versus the reward of our family schedule, like we said, we may be pushing some buttons and stepping on some toes, and we may be causing a little bit of a heated discussion between you and your spouse. And so if that's happening, we just want to encourage you. We have an online couple coaching program called Rock Solid Marriage. And hun, the other day I'm working with a couple, and they have been stuck on the demolition phase, the step of demolition. They had a lot to kind of break down. And man, some of this was the resentment and the bitterness that has just been building and building for years, not dealing with some conversations that should have been had years ago. And so if we're going to kind of uncover some uglies that are happening, and maybe sometimes it boils down to, I don't feel like a priority in your life. I've had that where it's all about the kids' schedule and it's all about the church stuff and it's all about what we do for everybody else. And when it boils down to it, there's a spouse who feels unloved and unprioritized. And so, man, that really does well up sometimes in the people that walk through our door. So if that turns out to be you and your spouse, go get some help. We're going to be talking about that at the end too. But Rock Solid Marriage has really been a great stepping stone for couples really kind of uncovering some of that stuff that's really been building up between the two of them. Yeah.
Let's start with the idea of recognizing that no one is being attacked here.
Right.
Because we don't feel like anybody is intentionally with ill intent. And we think that most people actually believe they're doing what they do because of positive intent.
Yeah.
They think, man, this would be great if we did this or spent time here or whatever. And so what we're talking about today is, have you had the real honest conversation, as the phrase you mentioned before, Hun, about the cost versus benefit analysis? Because what might seem really great in a certain mindset or a certain time might end up costing you a lot more. On our way to church today, we were talking about a kid that our son knows that is saying he has an offer to swim at a Division I college, and this kid is turning it down. And our son was blown away. Like, why would anybody turn down an opportunity to swim Division I?
Cost versus benefit.
And I said, well, you know, he's not the first kid that I've seen have that, because there's a huge cost to swimming at that level. And you better see that there's going to be a good, worthy payoff, a benefit. And so, again, I'm not in that situation and those parents to help that that kid make that decision. But obviously, that family has had some thought and conversation because he decided to say, it's not worth it. And so that's what we're really talking about today. You know, what is it that we're looking for? And what is it worth and what is it not worth?
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, Pun, because honestly, there's a lot of parents out there that have this really poor misnomer that the more I do for their kids, then the better parent I am. And years ago, I had a conversation with a mom who called herself a yes mom. And she said, I grew up with a no mom. And so I committed that when I had kids, I was going to be a yes mom. And if I possibly couldn't, then I would say no. But otherwise, I would say yes. And that for some reason, she felt like that made her a good mom. And so I'm talking to all those moms out there specifically, just because you can, and we've said this before, doesn't mean you should. Okay. And there's going to be a time and a place where you and your spouse are going to have to say, you know what? We're saying no to that. We're going to not do that. And so we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things. So let's talk a little bit about the different kind of things we're really calling out here and asking you to evaluate. We're putting everything on the table, all right? Everything onto the table and deciding what is really going to be our priority and what are we going to put our time and energy toward as a family.
You mentioned the word energy. And so, you know, life demands energy. And you have to have energy that has to be exerted to get you to whatever it is that you are wanting to do. And so energy is not free, right? Whether
it's at the expense of something.
Yeah, you either are having to buy food or you're buying fuel, even time. Time has to be bought. And so there's nothing free here. And so I think sometimes our kids might think that certain things are free because they don't understand that
the ATM, you just go and get money, right?
That there's a cost, okay? And so these costs are very real, but they're also well beyond the cost of just the financial burden, all right? And so we're going to get into a lot of these different things. And let's talk about things that we believe, and the Hutchinsons are guilty, all right, that we started with great intention. How about sports? You and I come from sports.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was a swim coach morning swim practices,
holidays,
weekends, holidays.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like we would take off Christmas Day.
Yeah.
That's it. The day, Christmas Eve and the day after, we were right in that water. And so sports and things like that.
Yeah, and we had little guys that were in lollipop soccer and t-ball at 4, where they
T-ball should be illegal.
where they literally are like
T-ball should be
sitting
illegal.
on the base, like playing in the dirt, and they really don't want to run. They don't want to really stand up even. They just want to sit there on the base, if they're
That
first
one
baseman.
was most T-ball. I was this
man.
T-ball coach, okay? So here I am
I
thinking
was a
this is a
lollipop soccer
great
coach.
idea, and we're out in the field, and we got 4 and 5 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
And they're the cutest kids in the world. But there's a coach over there with a little kid trying to hit a ball off a tee, and you got 20 other kids out in the field, and they're picking daisies, and you're like, yeah, this was an adult idea. This was not a kid idea.
You'd be more constructive of just playing
Play for 10 minutes in your front yard.
Backyard.
Yeah.
But see, part of what's happening, hun, is the trend to pay to play sports. And I have seen this so much walking in our office, where these kiddos are on a fast track to a full ride or an Olympic team. And man, they are getting these emails and they're getting these offers from these coaches and these leagues. And can I just tell you, if you got cash, there's somebody that wants your child. And, our daughter plays high school volleyball, and she plays club. And she hasn't done that for very long, but a couple years. And I made the mistake of checking off the recruiting thing. And I put my email down. Do you know she gets weekly emails from these recruiting people who see her as potential star? And they don't even know her. They think they're talking to her. They're talking to me. And they haven't even seen her. But yet they want you to spend that money to go to that recruiting camp, to go to that extra strength training, that batting practice, that all those extras, that club team, that select team, that national team. Those are pay-to-play leagues that are there for your money, and they are hitting a nerve with these parents who see this grand future for their child. And man, it's the cost versus reward is really heavy.
Yeah, it reminds me of the college letters, that you get when you're a sophomore, junior, and senior. I didn't have a snowball's chance of going to most of those schools, but I was getting them. And so I was thinking, man, I must be something.
Something.
No, they wanted the money that I didn't have.
Well, and you and I were both varsity coaches in different sports. And what we saw is they played so much during the year, so intensely, that by the time they got to the high school, they're burned out.
Yeah.
The number of kids who didn't even make it through their high school career because they had their head in the water since the first grade, right? That they didn't even want to see another swimming pool. And so you got to be careful that we don't, and we're going to be talking about this when we talk about the warnings, but that's a huge risk that you take, a huge cost, that they end up hating you or hating the sport by what you've encourage them or force them to be involved in.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. We're going to help you decide whether it is too much or not. So, because it is not the case with all kids, right? I mean, we know kids that have actually gone to the highest of levels and they've loved it and it's been a great thing, okay? I will say that's the exception. That is not the norm. And so we're not trying to say, like, if you do have a kid in a situation where it is crazy in terms of what you're putting in, but you're getting something great out of it, or they are, okay, all right? But anyway, so let's not just talk about sports.
Yeah.
Because I think we are in the sports world because that's kind of how we are wired. But we can see this just as much with dance, with singing, with piano, with
special
guitar,
voice lessons,
4-H.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we can spend thousands of dollars on 4-H animals and those things. And in themselves, they are not evil or bad, okay? So we're not trying to say any of these things are bad. Scouts, right? Like, I mean, all of these things, they can have greatness to them. Yeah. But we're going to have that conversation about at what cost.
Yeah, so you mentioned this, there's a social post going around about all the benefits of your child involved in activities in sports. And just like, they learn how to, take turns, they learn how to lose, they learn how to persevere, and all of those things. And so we're just saying, you've got to have a discussion in your home with your
Yep.
child, with your spouse, saying, what's the cost? What's the benefit? What's the cost? What's the reward? And so sometimes they really don't equal out well.
Yeah. Well, let's roll this through a little bit, and let's talk about. So we're coming at you as two parents who are trying, right,
to find balance,
and we're trying to do this in a way that honors God. But I don't want that to sound cliche. We're also saying, like, all right, ultimately, what do we want for our kids as they are adults? And when we see the people that come into our office, we see adult struggles, adult problems. And so often we see that, man, if they would have had somebody shine a light in a slightly different way when they were younger, or worked on relationships, or worked on what they spend time or money on, maybe some of these things could have been directed in a different way. And so we're talking about the idea of, are you and I and Linda and I, are we being basically sold a bill of goods by the way of the world? And I think that's just an honest, good question for us to ask, because we do it. Listen, I think you're a liar if you say, no, I don't. Like the clothes we wear, where we spend money, how we vacation,
kind
the
of car
food
we
we eat,
drive,
the phone, all of these things are of the world, okay? So it's not like you're going to escape that. It's just we have to constantly, if you're seeing my hands, I'm trying to put them on the scales of justice. Like, well, which one is just or which is unjust? So we're just trying to say, in Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And I think just as Christians, we have to sit down and have some of that conversation, because the world has put a lot of bells and whistles and fancy lights on things, and I buy most of them. Okay, so just admitting some of that and going, all right, how is this actually working with our faith?
Yeah, I mean, Matthew 6:33-34 says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Like, there's enough out there that, like you said, bells and whistles, you could chase the rabbit all day long. Like, when is it going to be enough? When is the right balance for you? Not what the world says, not what their friends are doing, not what the coach says, but what you feel is the right thing for your family. And that's how you need to evaluate this, not what Linda says, Merle says, or what their friends say. Okay, what's more what the Lord says.
Direction with knowing that we're headed towards God in some fashion.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the warning signs. Okay, because
but before we do, I want to put a disclaimer. We're not just talking about the kids. We're talking about adults too.
Oh yeah, well,
so
absolutely.
Work commitments, volunteering, all of those things, travel. There's other things that are pulling for our time and attention.
Yeah, you and I have been very guilty of that.
Yeah,
we get wrapped up in our own stuff.
We work on recalibrating and reprioritizing things all the time.
Pretty much weekly. Yep.
So we're kind of work in progress, you know? And so,
Show us a little grace, folks. Show us some grace. All right.
But here's some warning signs.
Let's talk about some warning signs, because usually, when everything's going well and the kids are in the back seat while you're driving to the tournament and everyone's laughing and having a great time and we just won the tournament, it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. In fact, you start to buy some of it is a great thing. But there are warning signs, and some of the warning signs we often just look the other way on. Yeah. And one of them that we see frequently is when all of a sudden you get to this point, because of the energy commitment, the time commitment that these things are taking, that you start to have a dissension or disagreement, first usually between the spouses.
Yeah.
Where maybe mom says, I think it's too much.
Yeah.
Or we haven't had a mealtime in forever. Or do we have that kind of money to spend on that trip? Okay. And so the next thing you know, we have husband and wife sort of bantering back and forth, and they're trying to persuade each other as to who is right.
Oh, by the way, this is magnified times 10 when you have a divorce case, because then it's all about winning the love, being the cool parent, being the one that's for those things, not against them, who's not throwing water on it, throwing gasoline on it. And so, oh man, there is a huge power play that occurs between exes, moms and dads when there is a divorce case, because it's all about, I'm going to show you. And then they're like, you need to drive him too. And like, I'm not driving him. I don't want him to go to 5 nights of gymnastics. Well, then that's your part of your job. Well, I'm not the one that's entering him in this, level gymnastics that I think is unrealistic and unneeded. And that's when it gets really ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. How about this one? You kind of alluded to this before with the swimming. Kids will start to complain about not liking the activity or the sport, and they'll start to show these signs of burning out.
Yeah.
Now, it's one thing when you get some of that. Like, I think most kids will start to show a level of burnout at the end of a season. Yeah. Okay, where it's like, oh, we got 2 weeks left, man.
You almost want to lose.
Practice, yeah. and so that part can be natural, all right. But when you are in the thick of it, or even dreading the start of it, okay, like usually when we're starting a season, we ought to have a little kick in our step. Yes. Okay.
Yearning, wanting it.
Yeah. But if we are in this and our kid is already giving us that look, that low energy, if you don't read that, remember, you're just going to force something into a bad place.
Can I just speak to that? Because you and I, again, both coached a lot of varsity sports, high level. I played college ball. I was recruited as a high schooler. But let me tell you something. When we start putting that pressure on our elementary school students that they are in year-round seasons of the same sport, whether it be soccer, baseball, volleyball, whatever it is, and we are like, this is how you succeed, this is how you're going to get better, and that kid doesn't want to when there's pushback. And literally, you got to be careful. Sometimes you can plant the seed of course you like this, right? You want to do this, sure, right? And so you really have to step back and give them permission to take a season off. We have so many kids that are literally doing double sports in one season. They'll leave, I saw this during track. They'll leave track and they're heading to softball. Or they'll leave baseball and they're heading to soccer. And it's like, everybody, please, what are we doing here? Our kiddos are overwhelmed and it's really unnecessary, and it's not going to play out well. It's not going to look like those Olympic athletes you think they're going to look like.
Yeah, what's it going to cost?
Yeah, what's it going to cost?
I think this is a big deal with this next point. Is a big deal when you have multiple kids in the family. Yep. We see it because a lot of times our kids are not in a sport at the same season. And so the kid who's maybe not in a season, the one who is in season seems to own the energy of the house.
Yeah.
Well, what are we doing this weekend? Well, we've got to go to the volleyball tournament. And the kid who's not in the sport starts to become resentful. Okay. And again, I mean, some of that is just supporting the family and we're just going to hang with it. But if we are constantly putting the other kids out to basically pay the price for the one child, okay, you just got to think, well, what is our family picture here?
Right.
And so we see this with the travel teams where we've got either mom and dad are taking the whole crew and they're going to Chicago for the weekend soccer tourney, and you got 2 kids who couldn't care less about soccer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and what's the message that you're creating? Like they're the superstar, and that the world revolves around this one child who's the star, and then everybody else has to follow suit. That really builds bitterness and resentment and makes the other child feel like it really isn't, ever about me, that I don't get. And again, I'm not saying we should play to, pumping anybody up to being the center of the world, but we really got to be careful the messaging we create. And then here's what happens on the other end, hon. We divide and conquer. You go to Chicago with one child. I go to Louisville with the other. We never see each other the whole weekend or the whole fall because we're in 2 different sports in 2 different directions and we are managing it. But what is that doing for our family?
Yeah. Again, occasionally these things happen in life.
Right.
Okay. What we're saying is this a warning sign that is frequent?
Yes.
That we find ourselves on a fairly regular basis. We're dividing and conquering. We're splitting again.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think, hon, this is something that our second oldest, I've said this before in other shows, actually showed us. Okay. He was a kid who needed downtime. He needed to be able to chill. All right. And his older brother had endless energy and could be involved in a lot of things. And we just kind of fed that and went with it. And the younger one was kind of being drug along to some of these things. And I remember him saying,
Can we just stay home?
just stay home?
Can we just do nothing this weekend?
Yeah, and it was like, wow, that came with some sincerity out of this little guy, you know? And it wasn't like he was whining or complaining. He was showing a level of exhaustion, like, I just need to chill. Like, why do we have to go do all these things? And I think, this is a lot of times people don't feel like they're doing something if they're not doing something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've got to be busy. I've got to be busy.
What are we doing this weekend? What are they doing this weekend?
When everybody else has to be busy with you, then that can be a little bit off-putting. Like, I'm tired of running your schedule.
Yeah.
And when your kids go old enough to really say, I'm tired of running this schedule, then you get that kickback. So we just want to be careful with the idea of, when was the last time you guys scheduled in some downtime? How about this crazy thing? Mealtime.
Mealtime.
All right. We have mentioned it probably in every show we speak of. The most valuable time that you can have as a family, the most valuable time is actually the meal time, the dinner time. Primarily, it could be breakfast, but primarily that tends to be the evening dinner time. And when that is happening once in a while, it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's
and
not enough.
By the way, that's not including Wendy's out of your car.
Yeah.
And the back hatch of the, on the soccer field when someone's having practice. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sitting around the table in your own home without a schedule or a deadline, just having a meal. But not only just the regular mealtime, hon, but man, when we are overscheduled, the cost versus benefit, the cost of not being able to establish or have those family traditions, like you said, the swimming season, it was Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Even New Year's Day, I remember you having to get up.
And you couldn't even enjoy Christmas Day because you had I'm really not going to get the rest because you're thinking about what you got on each side of that. So the whole thing gets pretty cloudy. Right.
So the traditions of going to cutting the Christmas tree. Well, I can't cut the Christmas trees because we're in Lexington for a tournament, birthdays. Oh, well, sorry, we're going to do birthday on the fly because your birthday is during a tournament out of town. And so we can't go to grandma's or we can't have family over because we're busy. And we really just destroy these values that we say we want in our family.
How about this is a huge warning sign, and this is a sign where we know the world is dictating, and that is when we financially are at a place where we can't afford what the family believes are the essentials.
Yeah.
Where you have people totally saying, we are wondering whether we're going to be able to rent, pay the electric bill, keep the water running, drive the car. We're wondering where the next dollar is going to come to do that.
Yeah.
But we're dropping $300 a month in a special strength training camp for our kid.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, I mean, I'm not trying to be in judgment. What we're trying to do is be thought provoking here.
Yeah.
Have you thought about this?
Yeah.
And what is the cost? Is this really worth it?
Right. So my previous employer, I worked with under-resourced families. And so we gave food and money and resources to families that came in need. And I'll never forget, in my office, I had a mom who was asking for rental assistance. She could not pay her rent and she could not pay her electric bill. And when I dug deeper a little bit, she had a job, and she was a single mom of two older elementary kids. And when we dug into it, she was paying $600 a month in sports fees, leagues, tournaments. I forget what it was, but the fact it was $600 a month.
Wow.
She was paying for two. I'm not even talking like high school, senior in high school. We're talking about older elementary kids. And I looked at her and I said, so let me get this straight. You're paying $600 a month when you can't even pay your rent and electric bill? And she's like, well, I'm a single mom and I don't want my kids to be deprived because of them not having a dad. And I was like, don't you think when you're not able to pay your rent and you're living on the street or you lose your electric, don't you think that's going to make them feel more deprived? Like our society has built this misnomer that to be a good mom, you're going to get your kids into those specialized, select teams versus being able to pay for food and for electric and for rent.
Yeah. You got to think twice about the cost.
Yeah.
This next point is a huge warning sign. And I think the more that we've involved medicine and doctors now, at least in our area, and I'm sure this is the case across the country, that you have schools teaming up and doing sponsorships with physical therapy programs, hospitals, orthopedics. And so there's like this love connection here. And part of the deal is we just have a boatload of injuries, all right? And so why do we have so many injuries? And so we have to really start to think, is my kid getting a lot of physical injuries from the sports they're in or the activities they're doing? And again, injuries happen, all right? I'm not trying to say that they don't happen. Yes, I'm a walking injury myself. But the idea here is it too much? What kind of injuries are these? And this is where it takes a little bit of reflection. Like, well, I've had stress fractures for the last 3 years because I'm a runner. Your body's trying to talk to you, okay? So these are things, physical injury is a great warning sign that we might be in a place that we need to back off of.
Yeah, I was trying to find the episode that we had a special guest from Children's Hospital who was in charge of sports medicine, and he came on to really talk about that very topic.
Dr. Greg Meyer.
Yeah, and I'll have to find the number for it, but it was years ago, but it was so good because he really went into the science on why this is not healthy for our kids. And when we start so young and so much, that it really does more harm than good. The cost is way more than the benefit.
Yeah. The interesting take out of that show, not to go completely in that, but there's what we are seeing across the spectrum here is there's not a lot of families and kids in the middle ground, which is the healthy ground. You either have families going way over the top, going too deep, too heavy in all these sports and activities, or the number one problem that we actually have with today's youth and families is obesity. All right. So doing nothing where you're not engaging your kid and he's sitting eating Cheetos and playing video games. So
it was actually April 14th, 2019.
You were good. You dug right in there.
I dug in there. Kids in Sports, it was called. Yeah.
What was it again? Say it again.
Kids in Sports, April 14th. This is when we were still on the radio, April 14th, 2019.
All right. Good deal.
Yeah. So it doesn't even have a number, but.
All right. Let's talk about what we're going to do about this. Okay. So we just gave you a bunch of warning signs, and hopefully, you could recognize those that you need to recognize. But let's talk about, as Christians, all right, as a Christian home, because that's the perspective that we're going to shoot from here. What are some ways that we can go about approaching this? All right. So, hon, what's the first thing that we actually had to do here very recently again?
Again, recalibrate. And that is to get unified as husband and wife, as mom and dad. We had to get on the same page and make sure we knew what we were doing and why.
Yeah. And so to get on the same page, one of the very first things we want to talk about, same page for what? You have to go back, and the two of you, mom and dad, you have to go back and you have to establish, what do we value? What do we value? And I'm not talking just the little fun things. I'm saying as a family, we always talk about when my kids go to leave my home, when they're leaving for school or college or military or work someday, what values did we impart on them? And so those are the things we're seeking unity on. And we have to go back to the drawing board sometimes and say, is this really what we're showing?
Yeah.
Is this really what we're doing?
Yeah.
What are the values? And then finding the unity.
So I'm going to give you an example of that. Let's say one of your family values is perseverance. Okay. And so in the middle of your child's season, they're complaining. They want to quit. It's too hard. Okay. And so one of our family values is perseverance. So we're going to say, no, we're going to finish this season. We're going to persevere through.
I think you said, suck it up, Buttercup.
No, I think that was your words. And that didn't go over very well, by the way.
No, I'll come clean on that.
Maybe a little gentler, kinder. But the point is that that's a family value of ours. We're not just going to quit the first hard moment, okay? And so we've had this conversation with all 5 of our children about persevering. But then at the end of the season, you're going to evaluate, okay? Is it because you were exhausted and it was the end of the season, it's been a rough road? Or is it that this really isn't your passion anymore? Because remember that burnout we talked about?
Yep.
Your kids have got to have permission that if this is no longer a passion of theirs, it can't be more about what you want than what they want, okay? And so it's really important that you're not portraying your dreams of having a college soccer player or an Olympic skier on your children, okay? Please don't transfer that dream that's been kind of unseen in your life over to your children, because it really does not pay off well, and the cost is so much greater.
Yeah, that's easy to do, for sure.
It
We
is.
get excited about what our kids are doing.
We think they are, but are they? You really need to have that conversation, but have it after the season when they have a chance to breathe and reevaluate for the next year. And maybe it's not all year long. Maybe they take a season off where they do nothing. And so that way they can evaluate, do I really still love the sport? Is that something I still want to do? Maybe there's something else I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, so that evaluation is, I'm evaluating the schedule based off of the agreed upon values. Okay. And so I'll say this, like, you and I have made a conscious decision to say that faith is a valued part of our home life and what we want to talk about and show and demonstrate. And so, when things are in conflict on Sundays with activities, which there's no shortage of activities on Sundays, we've had to come around the table and say, okay, well, what's this mean? And we're careful not to make a blanket statement on all those things. Right. We come together. Linda and I have to be in support because we're going to really do what we have to do, and that is then present it to the kids. Yeah. Not to sell them on it, but to say, hey, this is what we're going to do as a family.
Right. So you evaluate your schedule, and then if you can't agree, don't ignore the issue, okay? There's something deeper there. And as I mentioned before, when we have couples that come in who really feel, and man, I just had this recently where a husband looked at a wife and said, I think you value and prioritize the kids and their activities more than me. And that I could leave as long as you get my paycheck, you could care less if I'm there. And she was like, what? I thought we were a team on this. And he's like, no, this is something you want. Yeah. And something that you're driving. And I feel unloved. And she had no idea that that's where the anger and the fights were coming from. And so if you need help with that, if you cannot agree on what is a healthy balance, the cost versus benefits for your family, get some outside help, whether it be a pastor, a coach, a counselor. There's help available where you guys can find an agreement on what is best.
Is the cost of a broken marriage really worth what you guys are chasing? So. So let's say we've got some unity. We've worked on developing, hey, these are the things we're going to stand for in terms of our values. We've looked at the idea of the schedule, okay? And now what do we do next, all right? Yeah. And so we've talked before about the purpose and the importance of the family meeting, okay? And so again, this might be at that dinner time, all right? Again, this is the venue that might allow itself to work perfectly well here. But the idea here is that mom and dad are now aligned, and this depends on the age of your kids, right? We're not sitting around with a bunch of 2-year-olds at the table going, okay, we're doing diaper changes, and this is why we're doing them. But the idea here, okay, now we've got our kids, and we're age appropriately. We're saying, hey, guys, this is what Mom and I have been talking about, and we want you to know, all right? This is not a hidden plan, right? No. We want you to know that this is what we are trying to work towards in our family. And we're going to actually talk about the values that we've come to, right? And this is not a sales job where you're going to try to sell this to the kids and get their buy-in. You're going to say, this is where we are.
Yeah.
Okay, this is very matter of fact. You are an authoritative leader in this situation.
Yeah.
This is the direction that we're going.
Okay, so I just guided this with a family, and so it looked like this in this situation. They were overscheduled, and they were paying an exorbitant amount of money for pay-to-play sports, where their child was on some select or regional or national team, right? And it was dividing the family and really bringing this child into a huge anxious space. And so they had a family meeting, and they said, hey, we are going to have one sport or one activity per season. So fall, you can do one thing. Winter, you could do one thing. And we're going to set a cap on how much we pay and how far we travel for that season. Okay. And again, as they get older, you can reevaluate.
Right,
Okay.
right.
When they're junior and senior in high school, it's different when they're in fifth grade. Okay. And so it really is crazy what the sports world will get you involved in thinking that you have the next Olympic star in your house. And really, they're just excited because you're going to write a check to them. Can I just be honest with you? And so this was a really important meeting for the family. But the mom and the dad, they had hashed it out with me for a long time, getting on the same page, understanding the why, and then they communicated it to the kids. And can I just tell you, those kids had relief. Those kids had relief. It was almost like they had been giving permission to breathe and to step back and to not have to do everything that's being offered or that other people are doing. And it was hard because they had been busy. And now they all of a sudden had some downtime. But it really, in the long run, it paid huge dividends for this family.
Yeah. As you're talking there, honey, you talked about the kids being relieved. You know, I think it's really important. As a coach, I always said this. I can't want the win more than you athletes out there. I am not getting in the water to swim for you. You know, I'm not lifting the weight for you. So I, as a parent, I have to see the fire in your eye. I have to see that passion, and then I have to couple it with the actual assessing the talent. Right. And so these are
reality.
These are the things that you have to do as the parent and even as the coach. And so that's why this is not a necessarily fair and equal or not the same thing.
Yes.
Right. If you have a child that you've come to recognize has a blessing and a talent, and they've got fire in their belly for it, you do want to handle that kid differently. Sure. Okay. We've had 5 kids, and they've all approached life and different things differently. And our daughter, we would be more likely to say, hey, we'll go to this camp because she has invested in some of the work. And again, it's not that the other ones won't. It's just that they're not there right now.
That's a great point that you make. This is not a blanket statement for every family that has to do A, B, or C.
Right.
Because you're right. There are some standouts. There's some raw talent out there. We've been around folks who've been Olympic stars. And so we know that that's handled differently. But man, 9 times out of 10, you have a kiddo who just wants to fit in. They want to be involved. You want to see them active and healthy. And the way we're going about it is creating so much more of a cost to our kids and our families than a benefit.
Yeah. Okay, so once you've delivered that to your family, it doesn't mean it's casted in stone. There's always, this is a work in progress. It's a living sort of document where mom and dad come together and they walk through this. But the idea is you stick to your guns on these things, all right? You be consistent. You're not going to make your decisions solely off of the happiness or unhappiness of your child. We can't do that because children are children.
Yes.
And we are the adults. And so just because they give us a little kickback doesn't mean that we cave in and go, oh, well, we'll let you go ahead and do this or whatever. So you guys stay the course. And I think it's important that when they really start to see that you are united and you have a strong sense of why you're doing what you're doing, they will back off. When they see that commitment from you as to what your end goal is not to win the championship. Your end goal is to get them to be winners in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And the older they are, the more deeper you can have this conversation of the why. The younger ones, can I just tell you, they're more so connected to the world than they have ever been before than you and I were as little elementary kids. And so they see things out there. They hear things out there from their friends, what they're doing and what they're not doing. And so it's hard. They're doing the comparison thing. But that's a dangerous thing. And I love Romans 12 too, about don't conform to the patterns of this world, but renewing of your mind. Like that's what God's going to show you what his holy and pleasing purpose is for their life, your life. So please don't compare yourself to what everybody else is doing. What is healthy and good for your family, and live that out, and why you believe and what you believe, and stay the course, as you said. Be consistent as to what you're doing and why.
All right, your challenge. All right, Mom and Dad, your challenge. You've taken some of this in. Your challenge this week is to actually have some discussion between husband and wife. Have some discussion about actually what it is that you're doing, how you're approaching the schedule, the calendar of your family. What's consuming the time? Does it align with the values? Have we even established? And when I say established, they should be done out loud. This is not a guessing game as to whether your kids think you value something or not. Like when Linda and I say that trust or perseverance or faith is a value, our kids know.
Yes.
All right. We talk it all the time. It's in our vocabulary. And so our challenge this week for you is to actually say, what are we doing?
Yeah.
All right. And have some thought and discussion about it. More than anything, we're not trying to cast out a right or wrong through today's show. We're trying to be thought provoking. What is it costing and what is it benefiting?
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, I was looking for my phone. I don't have my phone around me, but I would say get out your schedule. We have a Google Calendar together. Get out our calendar and look at our week, look at our month, and what it consumes it. What is it spent on doing? And then put it all on the table and say, okay, if we prioritize our values and each other, what stays and what goes? And that's a great conversation. Again, we don't have all the answers. We constantly are, reevaluating and reprioritizing, but we continue to fight for those values that we know are so important for our marriage and our family and our lives.
Yeah. All right. So very good. Like we said earlier, if the schedule and the busyness is causing anxiety, difficulties, depression in your family, please reach out to us. This is something that we know we can work through. We just have to slow our minds down and get a plan to do that. So please reach out to us. Also, we want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for the support that they provide. And we just want to thank all you followers that we have out there. Please do us a favor. Keep sharing the show. We greatly appreciate that. And for that, we will get ready to sign off.
Yeah, so thank you so much for listening to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana.